Ratchet & Clank Games tier list. Hey guys, how are you doing today? This is Hepodix. So, I wanted to talk about Ratchet & Clank games because I really enjoy them. But since my expertise isn't the best with this, I have Arcaedon today with me, helping with ranking these games. So, hey dude, how are you doing?
Hi Hepodix, I'm doing fine.
Hey, that's good to hear. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Arcaedon, also known as Arcaedon Luminos, but I don't really use the Luminos. But anyhow, I started my channel in 2016, and I mainly do reviews and countdowns of video games on my channel. But I also do, I sometimes cover TV shows and movies as well.
Okay.
And sometimes a few meme videos here and there.
Okay, so you got some gaming and other varieties. That's cool, that's awesome. So, what's your history with Ratchet & Clank games?
Well, the first Ratchet & Clank game was maybe the first game I ever played, and I got it for Christmas of 2002, so it's very near and dear to me. And after that, I played every single RNC game that's been released.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really grew up with the original games too, and but along the way, I tried one of these or one of that in the way, but I never got like full digested after the PS2 games, so that's why I have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So, shall we begin?
Yep.
Okay, so I've listed the games on chronological order. So we got first the game that started it all, the original Ratchet & Clank. I really think it's a cool way to start the series. I really like the duo with Ratchet & Clank. It's akin to other games with duos like Jak and Daxter, but Ratchet & Clank I really enjoyed, and the thing I like about the first game really is the character dynamic. Is like how these two get to know each other. They're not like super familiar with each other, and it's rather like they start arguing in a bit, and towards the end they get all friendly and stuff. I really enjoyed the first game. What do you think?
Yeah, I highly agree with you there. It's a very character-driven game with Ratchet and Clank bickering back and forth a bit, because they just started out their bond, and it's not like you become friends overnight like that. But I think it's a very nice representation of a duo being formed, not just them being friends from the get-go, but actually developing in order to reach that point. Something I really love about it, and I feel like it hasn't been replicated quite in the other games. There's just something about the lighting and the very atmospheric music that just makes all the worlds so immersive. And other games have such aspects as well, but I feel like the original especially just nails the tone, and you can really see that when you play as Clank, because even though I'm not the biggest fan of the Clank sections in that game, I love how the perspective shifts. Like in later games, the camera will be very far away from Clank, so that it kind of feels like playing as Ratchet in a way. But in the first game, the camera is a lot closer to Clank, so that everything around you feels a lot bigger than when you're Ratchet, which I think is a really effective way to build the atmosphere. The gameplay does have its faults. It doesn't have strafing, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but even the auto-aim isn't the best, so it's kind of clunky in a lot of ways. But even so, I think the gameplay is really good with a lot of very well-designed levels, not to mention some really fun minigames like flying, giant Clank, hoverboarding. It's really fun stuff. And I also really like the other characters, like, for example, Skid McMarx and Big Al. Like, they're really fun characters that you don't see a lot, but they leave an impression.
Yeah, for sure. Captain Quark too, even though he wasn't my favorite, but had its own funny twists along the way, and the game also like established the core mechanics to the series, like traveling across the planets and the gun mechanics when you get new weapons, and the exploration as well. Like, I think as a first title in the series, I think it's really a solid game. What do you think about like rating wise? I'd maybe even go for an S.
Well, in terms of if I'm judging it by like critical quality, I think I'd go with a high A, but since we're going off enjoyment, I'm gonna put it an S for sure.
Yeah, enjoyment is important as well. Like, yeah, but you want to be critical as well. Sure, have like a mix of both. Okay, awesome. Then we have the sequel, Ratchet & Clank 2 Going Commando. It's aka Locked and Loaded in other countries. I always was confused, like, why these devs have different names for separate countries. That's confusing to me, and but as an European, I'm just gonna call them the names on the PAL region. So, Going Commando, the second game, I thought it had a great balance between like exploration and the combat and the different planets, and the plot itself was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's actually my favorite Ratchet & Clank game. It's super super solid.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely my favorite. And it actually didn't used to be my favorite. I used to put it like closer to 5th place. But as the years went by, I started really seeing a lot of depth to it. And I really love pretty much everything about it, from the gameplay to the writing with really funny jokes and very interesting world building with Megacorp and all that.
Oh yeah, the Megacorp and what was the Mr. Fish widget, whatever it was called, like some
and how he messes up words all the time.
Oh yeah.
Even though I think the original Ratchet and Clank is better in terms of atmosphere, I still really love Going Commando's tone. It's like the world building, especially with the Megacorp logos and all of that being everywhere, so that it really feels like a very consistent tone and consistent to the writing as well. And the levels they look really good, and they're so varied.
Yep.
Like, you have levels of all colors, and even when there are similar levels, like the snow planets, you can still tell that their atmospheres are very different from one another. I also really love the soundtrack. It might be my favorite soundtrack in the series. It's really magical.
Yeah, I know I'm nostalgic to the second game, but yeah, the soundtrack is super banger. Like, I really love it as well. It's super good.
And it's very varied as well, with it having like very hardcore rocky tunes and then very peaceful melodies in space, for instance, or when you go to the Mactar moon. It's just really pleasant stuff.
Yeah, it is.
The gameplay in Going Commando is probably my favorite gameplay in the series, because while it doesn't have the best Clank sections and does have some unpolished aspects, I just absolutely love the amount of stuff it has. It's like either the longest or second longest game in the series, and it has a bunch of maxi games, as they call it, like space combat, which is pretty fun.
Yep.
The arena challenges, those are awesome. Big Clank sections on spherical moons, no less. Very impressive. And crystal collecting, not to mention hoverbike races that are also really fun, which I actually prefer over the hoverboard.
Yeah, those were pretty neat too. I enjoyed them as well.
Something that's important to remember is that Going Commando introduced most of the things that are staples in the series today, like the arena challenges and weapon leveling up system and nanotech leveling up and
very true.
All of that. Spherical moons. Even the Insomniac Museum, which, by the way, is the best Easter egg in any game.
I remember that. That was quite an interesting one, yeah.
Yeah, even besides the Insomniac Museum, the game just has so many bonuses that can be unlocked, and it's just all really fun. And even though it might not be the most polished game, it just feels like a labor of love, and it's especially impressive since it was only developed in 10 months.
Wow.
Which, it's a rushed game, but somehow they made it work.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like rushed. Yeah, it's a really solid sequel. I think it's even better than the first game.
I agree.
We can probably both agree it's on the S tier.
Oh, for sure. Maybe even triple S, huh?
Oh yeah. Okay, so moving on, we got the third game. I like the third game as too, but I don't think it was as good as the second game or even as the first game. I actually heard about an interview that they were kind of in a hurry doing this game and they thought the game's gonna flop, but it turned out that it was still quite a success. And I have nothing bad against Ratchet & Clank 3. I think it's still a good game, but when you compare it to the previous two, I don't think it was as good. By the way, it's also called Up Your Arsenal in some countries, but in PAL territories, I believe it was just called Ratchet & Clank 3. But overall, it was pretty solid game still.
Yeah, again, I agree with you there, because
okay.
While I still love the game, there's something about like the level design that feels a bit restricted.
Yeah, there aren't as many branching paths.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, they feel more samey. Like the levels are very similar to one another.
True.
But same goes for visuals, because there's a lot of orange, like even the HUD is.
Yeah.
And, something I love about the game, however, is for sure the writing. The comedy is absolutely on point.
Oh yeah.
And it has some of the best jokes with some of the best characters, especially from Captain Quark and Dr. Nefarious and Lawrence. It does have a really interesting story regarding him atoning for his sins in the end, and how, like, the backstory between him and Nefarious. I found that really interesting. And I absolutely love the vid comics where you play as him.
Yeah, I enjoyed Nefarious as well. Like, this was the game that it was gotten introduced in the series, and it got rehashed to other games as an antagonist, Dr. Nefarious. But yeah, I still think it has a lot of good bits in it overall. Where do we want to put this? I think it's more on the A tier side of things.
Okay, so again with the original Ratchet and Clank, I would rate it at A as critically. But in terms of enjoyment, I would still put it in S actually, because it is my fourth game. So, but you can put it in A if you want to.
Yeah, we can have like a mix of critical and enjoyment, because the gaming is about having fun with this. So I think the enjoyment part is really important. I can agree with you and just put it on S. I think it's fine. I really think the original trilogy really established the whole series as a whole. But moving forward, we have the Ratchet Gladiator, aka Ratchet Deadlocked in some countries. And I didn't play this one much. I remember it had more of that arena-style gameplay without much of a exploration going on. It more emphasized on the combat aspect. But what I can remember, it was still okay. Not necessarily like a S-tier game to me. But yeah, what do you think?
Okay, so what you said about it being more action-oriented and kind of lacking the explorative factor.
That's how I remember it.
Yeah, that's, well, I don't know if I would call it a problem, but it's one of the things that brings it a bit down compared to the other games we've discussed so far. But even so, I think it actually has the best combat in the series, because it mostly focuses on combat. The weapon selection is pretty small, with only 10 weapons. They're still maybe the most consistent selection of weapons in the series.
Okay.
Because they each have a very specific usage that makes all of them valuable in certain areas, especially if you play it at the harder difficulties.
Okay.
And I really like the tone as well, with it being darker and all. Plus, it still has that really good comedy. Not as funny as the original 3, but it's still really funny. And the world building, again, is pretty good, I would say.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think part of the Ratchet & Clank games is the exploration. And I mean, the combat is also cool, but the mix of the two is how I enjoy it the most.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't think Gladiator as an entity isn't as good. But do we want to put it on A or maybe B? What do you think about that?
I love the game. It is my 6th favorite Ratchet and Clank. But unlike my top 5 favorites, which are also my top 5 favorite games ever, Deadlocked is number 11, I think. Okay. Which is still incredible, but yeah, I'd consider it an A, and I would also give it an A in terms of quality.
Yeah, we can go with A. Since you're more familiar with some of the titles here, I'll leave the judgment to you with some of these. Like I said, I'm the most familiar with the original trilogy, and like the next game, I've never played this one. It was called Going Mobile. It's apparently like a 2D game, but and only one at that in the series. And I never played this game. I saw some gameplay of it, and it seemed actually kind of interesting, even though it's 2D. So you've played this game, so this is really up to you. What do you think about it?
Okay, so I haven't played this game in maybe a decade.
Okay.
Maybe over a decade, in fact.
Because it's on older phones and it hasn't been re-released, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
You can only access it through emulators, or if you have it on an old phone. And I think I have it on an old phone, but I don't really have the code to that phone.
Okay, so, that's fair.
But in regards to how I feel about it, I actually have fond memories of it. Like, I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the games we've already discussed. But like you said, I thought the 2D direction was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Captain Quark vid comic in that sense, but probably not as good. But
that's true. Yeah.
Like, it's still an interesting concept, and I can remember being very fascinated by it. And like, wow, this exists.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, that's fine. It's more of the unknown titles anyway. So based on your experience from a decade ago, where would you be ranking this game?
Yeah, like, I have fond memories of it, but I haven't played it in a while, and I doubt I would really prefer it over most RNC games, so I would actually put it at a D.
Yeah.
And not to say that D is terrible, it's just I don't really have that much to say, and it's not my favorite.
I think that's a fair share of criticism for that game, because it's a mobile, it's 2D, it has its good bits, but it's not like super trash like E or F. We don't even have E or F in this list, so
yeah.
But yeah, it's on the middle side of things, so not bad. Can be better, can be worse. That's fine. Next we have The Size Matters. It was released on both on the PS2 and PSP. Which one of the consoles it came first? I don't even remember. Was it on PSP?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it came to PS2 a year later.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I thought it should be like naturally like the other way around, that you port like a main console game to a handheld, but yeah, that's interesting. I only played a bit on this. I remember it had more emphasis on Clank, like giant Clank thingy and the variety of vehicles you drive, like with the Clank mechanics, and from critical standpoint, what I've heard that it's not really good. So that's my take on it.
Well, it kind of depends on which version you played, from what I hear. Unfortunately, I've only played the PS2 version, which is supposedly the much worse version.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I got this one back in 2015, and it feels very amateurish compared to most RNC games, and there's not much polish in most of the areas.
Ooh, okay.
In terms of gameplay and visuals and all that. But and I didn't really enjoy it a lot too, so I didn't even finish it.
Oh, okay.
So
I see where this going at. It's gonna be a D. It's gonna be a D.
No, an E. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't played much of it, but I heard it's super dull and kind of a mediocre. Do you think it's better or worse than the mobile game?
Well, I do prefer the mobile game because I have more fond memories with it.
Wow. Okay. Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
Well, I would have to finish both games in order to judge fully, but
yeah.
I don't think I will really like Size Matters more unless I play the PSP version.
Yeah, you would have a different opinion on it overall if you'd rather play the PSP version. But yeah, I've heard not too many good things about it. I think D is like justifiable here.
It does have its fans, but I'm not one of them.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, we're getting to the PS3 era of games. We got the Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction. It's also known as Future Tools of Destruction. What's with the future on some of the titles? That's so weird, like,
Well, Insomniac decided they wanted to take the series in a bit of a different direction, so that's where the future comes from. And because it's on a newer hardware, you know, going from the PS2 to PS3. And they also have a through line with the Future series.
Okay, that's fair. But why the Future title is in some countries, and in some countries it's just Tools of Destruction? That's so confusing. That's always confusing.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Oh, actually, I do have an idea. Because, you know, for going Commando and Up Your Arsenal, it's usually because they're crude titles, innuendos. But as for the Future, it's that it was hard to translate in other countries.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
you know, translating to the box art.
Yeah, that could make sense. I haven't digested the origin story, why the name changed, but yeah, I think you have some leeway there with that. But anyways, back to Tools of Destruction. I didn't play this one either that much, but I've heard it's more on the mid-tier side of games. So this is really on to you again. Like, what do you think about Tools of Destruction?
From what I hear, I feel like it's more above average and like really beloved, but it's not like as beloved as the three at the top that we've discussed.
Yeah.
But I find this game kind of underrated in that sense, because while it might not be the best game in the series, I think it's up there with some of the greats, like maybe not going Commando, but I think it's pretty close to the original and Up Your Arsenal.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah. The thing it does is that it really improves the controls and movement of the gameplay.
Okay.
And while it doesn't innovate much, it does, the gameplay just feels really good, like really smooth. And it's one of my favorite Ratchet & Clank games in terms of gameplay. When it comes to the story, it's actually quite expansive. Like, they add a lot of new lore. And I must admit that some of that is like contradictory to what came before, and I don't like the story as much as what came before.
Okay.
But I still find it like well executed. Yeah, the comedy is also more bogged down. Like, it's not as prominent.
Okay.
But I do think it's mostly good whenever it does come up.
Okay, so the package as a whole is still quite good even though it had some iffies here and there.
Yeah, and as for the atmosphere, it's really a pretty looking game. It doesn't look as good nowadays, but when it came out, it was pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah?
Especially the first level, Metropolis, where you just go from like jump all over the place, and there are so many moving objects and ships everywhere and stuff shooting at you. It's really impressive. And even though I do prefer the soundtracks of the original 4, I think the soundtrack is still really good. It is by David Berchot, after all, the original composer.
Oh yeah. Love the music on pretty much all of the Ratchet & Clank games. It really sets up the mood in a nice way. So, you really said a lot of good things about the game. I really have to try it at some point. Where would you put Tools of Destruction in the tier list?
It's again like the original and Up Your Arsenal that I would critically put it at A, but in terms of enjoyment, I would put it in S.
Okay, would you put it after the third entry or somewhere in the between?
Yeah, after the third.
Okay.
I actually used to prefer Tools of Destruction over Up Your Arsenal and even the original, and Going Commando actually.
Okay,
but,
okay.
I don't think, like, when I look back at it, it's not as strong, but it's close, I think.
Yeah. You said a lot of good things about the game, so I can imagine it can be really enjoyable. So I think S is justified here. But the next one, I'm not too sure about. Like, is that how good? But I've heard a lot of things about it. Secret Agent Clank. I really like the concept. It's sort of like a spin-off thing going on, that it more emphasizes on Clank. It was one of those games that was also released both on the PS2 and PSP.
Yeah.
And what I've heard about the overall execution, though, that it was really mediocre. Although I really enjoyed the concept of it. Do you know whether it came originally on the PSP or PS2?
It again originally came to the PSP,
Really?
and then to the PS2 a year later.
That's interesting. Games getting ported from handheld to a mainline series of console. That's just weird to me, but yeah, sure.
The thing about that is that some employees from Insomniac and Naughty Dog actually split off to form this company named High Impact Games. And they made PSP games of Ratchet & Clank and Jak and Daxter.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, and then they later got ported to PS2, although they weren't ported the best.
I see. Thanks for the little backstory. But what about the game itself? I've heard it's not that good, so...
And I agree with that. At least PS2 version, again, I hear the PSP version is a lot better, but it again has many of the same pitfalls as Size Matters. It's not feeling very polished. Although I do actually prefer it a bit over Size Matters.
Okay.
Because I think Clank actually feels better to play than Ratchet and Size Matters. We do have a Size Matters Ratchet and Secret Agent Clank, but he's kept to a minimum, so it's not really protruding. And again, I haven't finished it, so I can't really speak on all of it, but I found its writing a bit more enjoyable than Size Matters as well. And it is, as you say, it's an interesting concept to make a spin-off game about Secret Agent Clank, even though it might not be the best executed.
Yeah. Where would you put Secret Agent Clank in the list? I think it sounds to me like a C, maybe D tier.
Yeah, it's again a D.
Okay. Do you prefer this over the mobile game?
I actually prefer the mobile game.
Really? Ooh.
Yeah, because again, I have more problems with Secret Agent Clank, at least from what I can remember.
It kind of feels bad that mobile game is beating two handheld games. That's fun. Just
it
fun.
Is what it is.
Yeah, it's just funny to me.
And while I do come off positive in some of these and negative in others, but even so, it might be because I'm comparing Secret Agent Clank to Size Matters, and then like it might be better, but it's not really by that much anyway.
Okay, well there are the correlations between the two. They both got ported from PSP to PS2, and yeah, I understand your perspective on this.
Yeah, and I probably would have put them in C or something if I had played the PSP versions, but I don't really care enough to do that. So.
Okay. So, bad impressions on the PS2. So get the PSP version if you plan to try this out.
Yeah.
All right. We're moving on. We got Ratchet & Clank Quest for Booty, aka Future Quest for Booty. I never played this game either. Like, what I can remember is that the game wasn't as long in terms of duration.
Yeah, it's like 3 hours.
Oh, that's quite a short one. from Ratchet & Clank game?
I think it's the shortest game in the franchise. Maybe not as short as going mobile, but in terms of Insomniac games, it is the shortest.
Okay. So despite the length, what do you think about the overall enjoyment and the actual quality and the overall execution of it?
So the thing is, it is an extension of Tools of Destruction in a way. So in that sense, I thought that Tools of Destruction has incredible movement, and that carries over to Quest for Booty. But I have to say, even though it's such a short game, even then, I do think it's a little repetitive. Honestly, like at least if you try to level up all the weapons, it's like you have to grind in the same spot at the end, which is really boring.
Ooh, okay. That doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, and when it comes to the writing, it does have some good bits.
Okay.
And some good jokes, but there's something really disappointing about it because it could have been so much more, and it focuses on the pirates and includes Talwyn, but I really wish that Talwyn had her arc wrapped up of maybe finding her father or finding a clue to where he is or something like that, because that could have come a long way to making this game a lot better instead of feeling kind of like filler.
So the plot had some potential but wasn't executed in the best way, and the overall duration was kind of on the short side and some repetition on the way. Where would you put this game in the list?
Yeah, it's either a B or C. Yeah, it's definitely a C actually, now that I look at the list. And in terms of comparing it to the D tier, I do prefer it by quite a bit, but it's not enough to be a B.
Okay, sounds fair. Okay, let's move on. So we got a Ratchet & Clank Cracking Time. I've heard it's a great game overall. It has some fun puzzles with the time mechanics going on, and it's just overall well-executed game. I played some of it. I never completed it myself, but what I can remember, that it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, this is an absolutely incredible game.
Yeah.
I think it's the peak of the PS3, and that doesn't just include Ratchet & Clank, but the PS3 in general.
Yeah.
The thing about it is that it separates the main duo, Ratchet and Clank, which you'd think would be to its detriment, but it's actually done really well because not only is Clank's gameplay a lot better than in the other games, but Ratchet's gameplay, like him by himself, is also a lot better due to the hover boots, and it just adds a lot to the exploration factor and the movement of it all.
Okay.
I don't think the combat is as strong as some of the other games, but the balance of the combat and exploration and all that is just incredible to me. It also has my favorite space gameplay. The way you can just move around these space sectors is really cool, and you can visit moons and do some hoverboard challenges and whatnot, which is really, really fun, especially when you have the space radio on in the background, which is really helps the atmosphere. It's actually a lot better than the actual soundtrack. It's a very cinematic experience too, because the cutscenes they're almost movie quality. Maybe not today, but at least back in the day, they really felt like that. And although the soundtrack isn't as good or catchy as before, it still does a really good job at, again, building that atmosphere. And I really like the writing too. I think it improves a lot on Tools of Destruction's writing, and that the comedy is funnier and that the story is just a lot more interesting and way more emotional. Like, I especially really enjoyed Azimuth's character, basically a mentor to Ratchet and another Lombax, who's just, he's a very complex character, maybe the deepest in all of RNC actually, so I really enjoyed him. And on top of that, Nefarious returns, and he's hilarious as ever, same as Lawrence. Even though I prefer Captain Quark in the original trilogy, I do think he's pretty much the best he's been since the original trilogy, and Captain Quark is my favorite character overall, so there you go.
Awesome. I
also really like the roles of Ratchet and Clank. They just feel really mature and gone on so many adventures together, and it's so emotionally resonant when they come back together. And the ending is probably my favorite ending in the game.
Okay, that sounds really great. I really have to play some more A Cracking Time in the future. You really sold me.
Yeah, you really should.
Sold me. Yeah, you sold me out with your speech. That's awesome. Where would you put it? I think it's based on what you said. It's somewhere in the S tier.
Oh yeah, for sure. It actually used to be my favorite game, but I did prefer going Commando eventually. But even so, A Cracking Time is like a hair behind it.
So between the original and the second game?
Yeah, I absolutely love both of those games so much.
Yeah.
My two favorite games ever.
Damn. I really have to play this one. Awesome, awesome. Then we have a Ratchet and Clank All for One. The thing I like about this game is that it has the co-op thing. You can play with up to 4 players, because the series as a whole never emphasizes on the co-op aspect that much. But the execution-wise, as far as I can remember, it wasn't really the best, but more on the mediocre, okay side of things.
Yeah, All for One is a very mixed game to the fan base, and it is mixed to me as well. But I do actually quite enjoy it. Like, if you look at the list, it's not nearly as good as the top 6, but I do find it really fun. I think it's a very creative game, and the level design and what you can do with the co-op, even though I haven't really played it much in co-op mode.
Yeah.
Mostly by myself.
Yeah, that's sad, because it emphasizes on the co-op. And I also think it's cool that you can play as the bad guys too, like Dr. Nefarious, and yeah, that's also a plus in my book. Maybe it could be even much more fun if you had like 4 players sitting on local and just going on with it.
Yeah, I'm sure it could. The worst thing about it is that it changed direction after the high of A Crack in Time. It is a spin-off, and it led to another spin-off, so I would have preferred a continuation to A Crack in Time instead. But for what it is, I think it's actually a good game. Maybe not a good Ratchet and Clank game, but just a solid experience.
It sounds like a sort of a mid-tier stuff to me. Would you put it on B or C?
I would put it in C, in front of Quest for Booty though.
Did you have more comments on the game, or you want to move on?
I didn't really touch much on the flaws, but lowering from 60 FPS to 30 FPS is one of them. Ooh. Even though I'm not the most angry about that, but it is a downgrade for sure.
That's a minus in my book, because I really prefer games. I'd rather have bad graphics and 60 FPS than good graphics and 30 FPS. So in my book, that's a minus. I didn't remember that had the FPS drop, so ugh, not good.
I can agree with you there. I also kind of hate how they kind of botched the designs of Ratchet, Clank, and Quark. They just look so kiddish from this point forward. It does get improved, but in this and the next 2 games, it's not the best. Plus, it's just not a standard RNC experience with all the highs and just how incredible those are. So no matter how good it might be, it just doesn't come close.
That's fair. And as a series go along the way, the more titles you put into the same franchise, it might starting to get a little stale, because they have to repeat the things, and it's hard to get innovating after like years and years of pushing out new games for the same franchise. So we can see some issues presented in the later entries. They're not just as fun or not as innovative in the long run, but yeah, All for One still a fine title nonetheless.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have Ratchet & Clank Q-Force, aka Ratchet & Clank Full Frontal Assault. So again, I never played this, but what I've heard, it's really mediocre. Like, it lacks a good story and stuff. So that's my take on it, really. What do you think?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is definitely my least favorite Ratchet and Clank made by Insomniac.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it a bad game, but I don't think it's good either. It's like mediocre. And the reason why is the gameplay is very different. It's like tower defense gimmick, which is kind of hit or miss.
Yeah, for sure.
It gets pretty repetitive when that's all you do, basically. And even though it's a short game, it is still kind of repetitive, just like Quest for Booty, except even more so.
That doesn't sound a good recipe to me.
Oh, I didn't touch on this in All for One, but the music from that point onwards is also a lot less memorable.
Okay.
And I do think All for One has some good tracks, but as for Full Frontal Assault, I don't really think it's all that good. And if that wasn't enough, it looks good, but it still doesn't look as good as, say, A Crack in Time, for instance.
Yeah, the game can have 4K or 8K graphics or whatever, but if the gameplay is mediocre, like that's not gonna make me want to play it. So it's really sad to hear, actually, that it hasn't gone a little lower standards with the later entries, at least most of them. But yeah, Q-Force to me doesn't sound really that good.
You touched a bit on this in regards to the writing, and it's also at an all-time low. It's like, it's very directionless, I guess. It just doesn't really have much going on, and it reintroduces a character from Going Commando, actually.
Okay.
But that character is so obscure that it barely matters, and he's actually pretty cringe in this game.
Oh, so on top of the kind of short gameplay, there's the repetitiveness, not that good of a soundtrack, and cringy dialogue and bad story. This sounds like a D to me. Or low C?
The thing is, I do prefer All for One and Quest for Booty quite a bit over this game, but I also prefer Full Frontal Assault quite a bit over the D tier. So it's kind of hard to determine. If I were to go with a critical ranking rating, I'd probably put it in D tier, so you might as well. But I'd put it at the forefront of D tier anyhow.
Okay, let's put it on high D. That sounds pretty fair, given the criticism and the flaws the game has.
Yeah, I don't have much positive to say about it.
Okay, yeah.
But I do enjoy it, like, fairly well.
Yeah. So, moving on, we got Ratchet Clank Nexus, or aka Into the Nexus. Again, I played a bit of this, but I remember it had some like gravity mechanics, and it has more emphasis on the unique locations, which is a good thing, but the core experience, from what I can remember, it was pretty okay actually. A step up from Q-Force at least, but not necessarily a top tier for me, although my judgment isn't the best because I haven't really fully explored the game, so... But what I can remember is that it was pretty okay actually, so...
This game actually has it worst when it comes to frame rate, because it drops a lot.
Really?
Yeah, but I do think there's an over-reliance on bloom as well. So even though it is a pretty looking game, I do think it has a lot of elements that just doesn't look very good. But other than that, it's a really good game. I don't think it's one of the best, but it is a return to form after the spin-offs, which was really satisfying. But at the same time, it's a very short game. It's like 6 hours.
Okay.
But the gameplay is really good as ever, of course, and it does innovate a bit, which is really cool. Like, as you said, the gravity mechanics, like grav leaping from magnetic surface to magnetic surface, or flanked gravity mechanics in 2D, which was pretty cool as well. As for the story, I actually don't care that much for its writing. It's like, it doesn't have that much comedy, and the story, while competently written, it feels like it doesn't go anywhere, except for, like, it does lead into Rift Apart, but the way it gets there is kind of shaky.
Okay, so there's some sort of continuity with even some of the later games. I wasn't even aware of that, actually.
It's called an epilogue to the Future series, but it doesn't really feel like it does anything with that, except like being set up for the next. But even so, it doesn't feel much of a setup, to be honest.
Okay.
It just sort of happens. Feels kind of fillerish.
You said it has a bad frame rate. Is it 30 FPS or is it below 30 FPS?
It's 30 FPS, but it definitely drops below there sometimes.
That's bad. That's kind of immersion breaking for me. But yeah.
I will say though, even though the music is still kind of unmemorable, I do think it's a step up from Full Frontal Assault at least. And the main theme is actually really cool.
Okay, awesome. So, all things considered, where would you put Nexus in the list?
I think it's about time we fill in the B tier.
Oh yeah, it's this time. All right.
Because Into the Nexus might be like a top 20 favorite game for me. So I would maybe in actuality put it an A. But when I think of it critically, it's definitely not an A. It's more of a B. But it's definitely better than the C tier and D tier.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds pretty accurate and pretty fair, like enjoyment and critical wise to that. Oh, the next game. I don't even know if I want to talk about it. Oh my god. It's called Ratchet Clank Before the Nexus, the mobile game. So it's sort of like a Temple Run knockoff with like a Ratchet Clank coat of paint put on it. I never tried it, but I saw some gameplay and it just looked really piss poor. Like, not my cup of tea necessarily. Like, if I had to end it here, I would just put it on D. But I want to hear your opinion on it as well. Like, I just don't think it's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so this might be the last RNC game I played, because for some reason I couldn't download it onto my phone, but I found a way eventually, and I was happy to have it because, you know, it's fun to have played all the games in the series.
Oh yeah?
But it is, as you say, similar to Temple Run, or as I would compare to Subway Surfers.
Oh yeah?
From what I can remember, Subway Surfers was a lot more responsive, a lot better. Before the Nexus kind of has a problem where you have to move and shoot at the same time, which feels very finicky with touch.
Oh.
So yeah, there's that. So honestly, there's not really much to say about it.
Yeah.
It barely has anything going for it.
Yeah, maybe if you would play that with a controller, it would be slightly better. But with touch controls,
Yeah,
you have to do many things at the same time. That doesn't really sound fun to me. Like, not really.
It's quite messy.
Yeah. So I assume it's on the D tier, but do we want to put it at the bottom, or where would you put before the Nexus?
Yeah, I think before the Nexus is before the rest.
Yeah, it's a terrible game. Even though I haven't played it, it's hard to me to criticize about it, but seeing the gameplay footage is like, I don't even want to try it. Yeah. So, we got 2 more left. I know the last one isn't out yet, so that's more of a speculation type of discussion.
Yeah.
But we got the PS4.
I'm glad you included.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited for the newest game, although I don't even have a PS5 yet, but it has potential. But hold on, we still got one before that. So,
yep.
The PS4's Ratchet Clank, it's a remake basically from the first game, and I think the actual gameplay was quite good, but the thing I don't like is that the dialogue and the cutscenes were somehow altered. Like in the original game, you had this development between Ratchet and Clank, how they got to know each other and the progression. But in the remake, it feels soulless to me. And I remember this hashtag Gadgetron thing. Like what? Like
iconic.
Yeah, it's kind of a meme, yeah, I know, but apart from the mixed dialogue, I think the gameplay was still fine, and the refined graphics was great, and but to me, I don't think it still wasn't as good as the original. But that's just my take on it. What's your take on it?
Okay, so this game has quite amazing gameplay and visuals. That's really the only parts that it's amazing in terms of, I would say. And even though the gameplay is amazing, it does lack a lot of levels from the original, which is quite a shame too.
Oh yeah, there was that too. I forgot about that actually. Damn.
Yeah, like Eudora and Hoven and Ultanis and all those.
Damn. That's not cool.
Yeah.
What do you think about the dialogue and the cutscenes?
It's probably my least favorite in the series.
Yeah, it's so, soulless. It's not the same to me, and I don't want to talk because, yeah, I grew up with the PS2 games, that's nostalgic to me, or yada yada yada, but, even from critical perspective, it just isn't as good, the writing and the cutscenes and everything. It's just,
yeah.
There are good bits to the game, but then there are things that kind of lack, so it's really a mixed bag for me. Do you have something to add?
Oh yeah, even though it's a remake, and, we criticize it heavily for being not a very good remake, but even as its own thing, the writing isn't very good on its own. They kind of try to justify the writing by having Quark being the unreliable narrator, but even so, it doesn't really make sense that he would basically put Ratchet and Clank on a pedestal, whereas he would recount his failures. So I don't even buy that. And another contention I have is that the music is also at an all-time low. It's just very generic, even more so than Full Frontal Assault even. It does have a few good tracks, but most of them are just and they don't fit very well either.
Okay. So, where would you rank the remake?
It's again a tough one because critically, I would put it in C, but I do enjoy it almost as much as Into the Nexus.
Okay, so more of a B side of things. Do you think it's better or worse than the Nexus?
I think it's worse than Into the Nexus, but can put it in B, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
It does still have the amazing gameplay from the best RNCs, you know? So
yeah.
It's just, it's kind of the worst out of those due to the other factors.
Yeah. So, the last game, it's coming on June.
Yeah, June 11th, which is right before my birthday.
Awesome. Yeah, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, so it's coming on PS5, and since it's not out yet as of making this video, we're more speculating about this, but what I think about the game, it looks really good, and I really like the new Rift Tether mechanic, where Ratchet can pull himself forward when he goes to these different portals and dimensions. The transitions are really done in a cool way. That's what I've seen from the gameplay and the trailer or whatever. But the thing is that I want to be honest with myself, I don't have super hyper expectations to this game because of the world situation, COVID and everything, but I still really hope it's gonna be a great game because the PS5 really deserves a good Ratchet & Clank game, so I really hope it's gonna be good, but yeah, it really has some good things going on with it. So what's your speculation and expectations on the game?
Yeah, so Rift Apart. I'm really excited for this game. It's I made a video about my most anticipated games recently.
Oh yeah.
Where I put Horizon Forbidden West in first because we hadn't seen that much of Rift Apart yet. But honestly, it might be my number one hyped up now, at least for the moment. I bet I'll have even more hype for Horizon when that gets more footage. But
yeah,
from what Rift Apart has shown, it's some really impressive stuff in terms of the gameplay and visuals especially. I absolutely love how it takes full advantage of the PS5's insanely fast SSD.
Oh yeah, the transitions are way smoother and you don't have to wait as long. Yeah, the SSD is really the modern era of like hard drives, whether it's the consoles or the PCs.
Yeah, and how it's worked together with the whole interdimensional aspect. It's really creative as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that can only be done on the PS5. You couldn't do it on PS4, for example. There aren't many PS5 exclusives that we know of at the moment, but at least Rift Apart is one of them, and that's really exciting. I do definitely have some worries about it, considering the last game was Ratchet and Clank PS4, and before that, other games that didn't really have the best writing either, or music. So I do worry quite a bit about the music and how the story will go and the comedy and all that. But no matter what, I can't see myself liking it less than Into the Nexus, and I think it'll be like really close to the greatest.
Yeah, that's a fair statement actually. And since we haven't played this game, it's hard to like rank this one. But based on the footage we've seen and based on the speculations and the hoping of it, where would you actually put this? I think it's maybe A or high B.
For me, it's either high A or low S.
Okay.
And it completely depends. Like
yeah, it really depends on the final product. But let's put it on A. I think that's quite a safe spot.
I can't see the gameplay being bad at all, and the visuals, they look absolutely terrific. But if it nails the story, then it very well could be maybe even one of my favorites.
We'll see how is that going to turn, and if I remember correctly, you're gonna do a review about it when it comes out, am I correct?
Yeah.
Awesome, so definitely looking forward to that when it's gonna be out in your channel. And yeah, that's all the games ranked. This is gonna be a longer video than I think we both anticipated, but I had a lot of fun discussing the games, and thank you so much, Arcaedon, for joining with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I have plenty of reviews and countdowns and a few other videos that I don't have as many of, but they're still there.
Yeah.
And I might from time to time talk about TV shows and movies as well.
Yeah.
But mostly games.
Yeah. So definitely check out his channel if you're into that variety content. That's awesome. I've seen some of your videos and I really enjoy them. So I'll put the link in the description for that.
Thank you. And I also made a Ratchet and Clank month in November where I posted 4 Ratchet and Clank videos back to back.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking of doing that for this year too.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Look forward to that.
I really enjoyed the RNC videos you posted. So yeah, I'll have the information in the description. And again, thank you so much for joining. And whoever got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. And my name is Hepodix. And hope you guys have a nice day.